Welcome back, everybody. Stephen Hendry is the most decorated snooker player in history. It's always good to hear what he thinks about the shape of his game, the memories of his past, and what exactly his expectations are here in Hull. Stephen, it's great to see you back on the World Senior Snooker Tour, and great to find time to catch up with you before your match in Hull. I think it's fair to say, by your own admission, you didn't really feel you performed that well last year on the Seniors Tour. Do you think there was any particular reason for that?
A couple of reasons. Obviously, one reason I didn't play certainly this 5-6 hours a day that I used to play when I was on the main tour. Also, I have to give my opponents credit. They played well and possibly were sharper. The qualifiers were sharper than I was. So yeah, coming up against pretty decent opponents and being pretty rusty was a recipe for disaster, really.
Well, I didn't think it helped. Obviously, you had pool commitments in China. I think on a couple of the kind of occasions, you literally landed back the day before. Do you think that probably wasn't ideal preparation?
No, not at all. Obviously my commitments in China are very important, and I have to support those. But I think this year with the tour seems a bit more official. Seems a bit more like a tour. We've got a calendar for events coming up, and it kind of makes you want. I'm not going to go back and play 5-6 hours a day, but it kind of sort of makes you think, well, I want to perform a little bit better. There's events that you can look forward to and try and win. So I'm going to give it a better go this year. I'm not promising the results are going to improve because short match formats you can't determine definitely who's going to win. But certainly at least if I give myself a chance, we'll see how it goes.
Do you think part of the problem is people's expectation? Here's someone who's won everything the game has to offer. Surely all you've got to do is walk through the door and turn up, and you've won.
Yeah, I think a lot of people assumed that was going to happen, and obviously my own expectation as well. Even though I'm not practicing or not playing the snooker that I was, I still got expectation of myself to do well. But yeah, I do think that going through social media and people say, oh, you only announced you're going to play in these events. People expect, oh, you're going to win easy because you're playing these players. But it's not worked out that way so far.
So we're at the UK Championships, our seniors version, and I think it's fair to say that it's a competition you've had a fair bit of success to. I mean, I was looking up, I think you played in it 26 times, quarters or better at 17 of those, 10 finals of which you won 5. It was pretty good to you, this competition.
Yeah, I always enjoyed the UK Championship. Like the World Championship, it used to be over long frame formats. Certainly when I won it 5 times, I think a couple of times it was even best of 31 or best of 33 finals. So yeah, I always enjoyed those type of events. The UK was always, the UK, the Masters and the World were the 3 big events. So those are the 3, there's no surprise that I've done the best in because I love playing in the big events.
So if I can take you back to 1986, I know it's a while ago, and I think it was your second season on tour. You already were making quite an impact, although you were young. I think you'd got to the quarters of the Grand Prix that year, so people knew who you were. But you came to Preston, the first year of the UK, first round opponent, Alex Higgins. How was that? Memories going into that match?
Well, when I turned pro, Alex was really good to me. We used to practice a lot at venues. Everywhere he'd say to Stephen, come and have a game. So obviously he was one of my heroes. Playing and to play Alex in venues like that was just incredible. Going further up through the years, I mean, we had memorable matches where I can't say on camera some of the things he would say to me, but yeah, so it's playing someone like Alex who is going to have all the crowd on his side. Fantastic memories.
And I think you only lost kind of 9-8, and I think that was the tournament, if I'm right, that he got into an altercation with an official and got himself a 5 tournament ban.
Yeah, I mean that's Alex for you, and I'm sure there's everyone's got so many Alex Higgins stories. As I say, I remember the time when he beat me once, or I beat him. Sorry, this was at the end of his career. And I was standing in the corridor waiting to go on. Steve Davis was in the opposite table. He was standing waiting to go on. We're both very focused. Alex walks in, says to Steve Davis, I won't say, he said, but he said, I'm going to do something to Stephen tonight. I can't say the exact words. And then we get to the table and he says, shake hands with the devil. So it's, it could be quite intimidating.
I mean, quite a bow into the UK Championship, placing him first.
Yeah, absolutely.
87, obviously, another first round, Jim White. Now, he probably wasn't the most of the well-known Canadians at the time, but he was still someone who'd reached, I think, the semi-finals of the World Championships, and it was another close one that year.
Yeah, Jim White was a sort of player that I had some problems against in the early part of my career, because he's very awkward player, very technical, very deliberate player. So yeah, he'd be the player that when you would be watching him go around the table, you'd be like, I was young, I wanted to get out and go for everything. I was impatient. So playing something like that wasn't good for an impatient player because he was one of the slower ones.
And 89 was probably, I would think, the breakthrough year for you with the UK Championship. I mean, you reached the final and you beat kind of Willie, Thorburn and Davis on the way. Obviously, that would have been huge matches. And you met Doug Mountjoy in the final. Now, I think probably on the back of where you'd come, you'd have gone into that final as quite a big favourite.
Well, in my own mind, most of all. As you say, I beat Steve Davis in the semi, I think 9-1 or 9-2. So yeah, I'm playing Doug Mountjoy in the final. I'm thinking, that's it, I've won it. Beating Steve in the semi-final was my final. Yeah. It doesn't matter who's going to turn up. The tournament's mine. But yeah, what a massive mistake to make. I mean, Doug made 3 centuries on the spin against me at one stage. Just played awesome snooker. Obviously, he'd been to the late great Frank Callan, who's also coached me in my career, and he transformed him. Yeah. So yeah, it was certainly one that I remember and one that sort of got away.
And he kind of went through a bit of a purple patch, so to say. I think he won the Masters literally a few weeks later as well. He hit this kind of rich fame of form from nowhere. So, but I think you put it right the next year. First UK Championships, again against Steve Davis, who I guess was the kind of, you two were jostling for kind of dominance at that time. That must have been a special moment.
It was an incredible final. Again, the finals were over 2 days, so pretty much like a crucible final. And Steve Davis was still at that stage number 1, still the player to beat. So for me to beat Steve, took me a while to beat Steve Davis. Beating him for best of 9 was a major thing for me. Then beating him in best of 17. Then to beat him in a 2-day final. I think 18-17. He was 17-16 up, and should have won really. But a few twitches came in, which was nice to see. I made one of the best clearances I've ever made to make it 17-all. And in the final frame, he butchered a long shot, left me in amongst the balls, and I think I made a 90-odd.
I mean, it kind of started almost a ridiculous run with you between sort of 89 to 96, where like 5 UK, 6 Worlds and 6 Masters. I mean, you must have felt absolutely invincible during that kind of period.
Yeah, very much so. As I say, the big events, the UK, the Masters in the world, were starting to become mine, as it were. As you say, I was starting to feel invincible. I was almost taken for granted winning these tournaments. At the start of each season, those were the 3 that I set my stall out to win. And if I didn't win, 2 out of 3 of those in a season, I'd consider it a poor season. So yeah, the Guildhall, Wembley Conference Centre, Crucible, those are my three venues where I felt most at home.
Do you think that really you did change the way snooker was played in that period?
Yeah, I certainly think I brought a lot more aggression into snooker, a lot more, it's hard to say, a lot more cutthroat way of playing, just getting in, smashing the reds open, winning frames in one visit. When my way of break building was probably different to a lot of players. Certainly, like Steve Davis was more of a sort of pick reds off and go into the pack, and whereas I would just want to smash the reds everywhere as soon as possible and make the break as soon as possible.
I mean, that was a hugely dominant period for you, as I say, and it's like people are very quick to make comparisons. They try and compare eras, and it seems every season people are talking about Ronnie overtaking one of your kind of records. The one that is there, the 36 ranking titles, that was made during your time of 12, maybe 14 ranking events a season. If you'd have had 30 events to play in during that period.
Yeah, I mean, at times there was sort of six major tournaments and 2 or 3 invitational tournaments. Yeah, so there was a lot less tournaments. I remember, the ranking systems was different as well. I mean, you used to get 6 points for a win, 5 points for a runner-up, and it would go down to 1 point. And at one stage, I was 36 points ahead of number 2.
Yeah.
So kind of like what Selby is now. I was like, I could have taken a year off. Someone would have to win 6 tournaments just to get equal with me. So yeah, it was certainly a dominant period in the 90s.
But if you'd have had like 30 ranking events to play in during your kind of period, where you could have had 100 ranking titles. I don't think that's unrealistic.
Quite possibly, because I was, I was dominant. I felt dominant. I felt confident. I didn't think. Expect people to beat me. So, I mean, there's no doubt I would have won more than 36.
Yeah. So, jumping forward to 2003, I think you'd won the Welsh that season, you got to the semi-finals of the World. It probably, in your mind, wasn't a great season, but you're on your way back from Hong Kong, and your cue gets broken. Do you remember kind of the moment when you were kind of told that and what had happened?
Yeah, it was actually Thailand. I checked my queue in at Bangkok Airport. After 9/11, we couldn't take the queues on board anymore. We had to put them in the hold. So I flew back from Bangkok to Glasgow or Edinburgh, I can't remember, via London. But I remember getting off the plane in London, and someone from the airport, an official from the airport, saying your luggage had been damaged. So I'm thinking, well, what is it? Is it my suitcase for queue? And I said, what is it? He says, yeah, I think it's your snooker queue. So now I've got to get a flight, hang around Heathrow, then get a flight to Scotland and wait. The guy didn't know how damaged it was, and then so I get into Edinburgh Airport, and then it comes around the carousel in 2 pieces.
And do you think you must have felt sick to your stomach? You must have just...
My career's over. That was my first thought.
Was it?
Yeah. It's the only queue I'd ever had. It's the only queue I'd ever had. And it was such a crap queue that you think, in terms of, you look at queues now, they're all handmade, and, you can get a queue and it's like £500-600. It's like, the wood, everything's like made for you. This was just something I seen in Iraq in a club and got for £40. It was bent. It was, Alex Higgins once looked at it and says, you won't think that's good for? And it says, holding up tomatoes in the greenhouse. So everyone that picked it up thought it was a rubbish queue, but it was my queue, and it was what I won all the titles with.
And so do you think that had an effect?
It shouldn't really have an effect. I mean, it does have an effect, obviously. A queue becomes like an extension of your arm, especially a queue as unique as mine was. But then it shouldn't really matter. You should be able to focus and get used to a new cue and be able to play snooker again. And I did win. I think I won another 5 or 6 titles with a new cue. So
you did get it repaired though, didn't you? But it just never felt the same.
I couldn't use it. Yeah, I couldn't use it. Yeah, it was because of the cue, the wood was such poor quality that Laurie Annandale, who done all my tips through my career, he put a new butt onto the cue, and the balance was just completely shot.
Wow. But I did also read that it was probably you'd nearly lost it in 1990. You had it stolen, didn't you? At the Grand Prix.
Stolen from the Ramada Hotel in Reading.
Wow.
Playing the Grand Prix.
And that was very early in your career.
That was. Very, very early on. I was due to play John Wright in the first round, and it was a private room in the hotel which they put a practice table in. I basically just nipped out for a Coke, came back 10 minutes later, and it was gone. So my manager put up a reward, and it was found in a bin somewhere.
So no one ever claimed the reward?
No.
Because I think I read it was £10,000 at the time. It would have been a lot of money in 1990. A lot of money, yeah.
The police weren't happy about it, putting up the reward. But it turned up. It was very, very lucky.
Well, thank goodness it did. Because
John Wright wasn't happy.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope we see you back lifting trophies. Hopefully it'll start with the UK this week.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
So a great insight to the king of the Crucible, Stephen Hendry.